Welcome to Brier's Music Showcase. I am Bryer Cisneros. Of course, you already know that because, of course, you just read that right there. But, of course, this is actually a pretty monumental occasion because this is like the first time I actually have somebody with me in a video for once. And, of course, I've talked about this guy many times in the past, and he's appeared one time before, except it was like an impromptu during a live stream. But this is the first time we actually planned this ahead of time. So, of course, I'm going to let this guy introduce himself. So go ahead, Nick. Go ahead and tell us about yourself and your channel.
Awesome. I am Nick from Sounds of 505. I am a big music fan. More specifically, I love Queen. I'm a huge Queen fan. I take pride in being the second biggest Queen fan in our group. Of course, number one is Bryer. He's number one. I can never take the crown from him. I'd say I'm the second biggest Queen fan. I've been a big Queen fan since 2020. You know, during the COVID times, they really got me through COVID a lot. So, hats off to them there, and I mean that in a good way, not in the Led Zeppelin kind of way. Anyways, and yeah, I do a lot of music reviews. Bryer's a big guest on my channel. We do a lot of series. We did a Bird series, a Mamas and Papas series, a Black Sabbath series, and we just finished Kate Bush. I like to do some sports post-game videos, and I've been doing a movie review every once in a while, but my main focus on my channel is music, and I'm glad to be on another music channel. It's always a pleasure.
All right, sweet. So yeah, like you said, I'll make sure you subscribe to Nick's channel. Of course, link to his channel will be in the description. And of course, like you said, you're a big Queen fan as well, and that's kind of why I wanted you on this one, because in this video, as you saw in the title already, is that we are going to be talking about the big awaited kind of box set that Queen released. Of course, their new remix of their debut album. Of course, in this case, it's called Queen I. So before we kind of continue on, first off, I kind of want you to kind of tell the, any viewers watching, like, what was your when this was first announced, like, what was your thoughts initially, and kind of your thoughts kind of leading up to this release? Like, what kind of opinions were you having early on?
For me, I actually did a video on my channel, like a brief live stream. I remember Bryer and Scott and Jason commenting on the live chat while I was giving my thoughts, because they released it was very out of the order, and it was out of nowhere for me, because Bryer shared it in the group, the Music Junkies. I was like, box set coming out, and I'm like, and I looked and I was like, do they have any any remixes that are released? And they had The Night Comes Down. I listened to it and I was not impressed. I was not impressed at all. The voice correcting on, I'm not going to go too in depth on it, but they voice corrected Mercury. I wasn't a fan of that when I first heard that initially. And then what the thing that really got me was the awful music video that came with it. I hated that so much. Going closer and closer to the box set, I'm just really unexcited. I'm not excited at all, but I was like, I'll still like to do the video and just give my thoughts like everyone else is, especially on the other portion of the album, which we will be doing. And I don't know, just more and more skeptical for me. And they released another remix, Modern Times Rock and Roll. I'll give my thoughts on that when we review the album, but very skeptical for me, and I wasn't as excited as you would think I would be as a Queen fan.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people were kind of in that boat as well. Because I did do that video like a month ago talking about that dreadful video and how it did kind of sour a lot of people from it. But it's out now. Of course, some people have bought the box sets, some people have just heard it on streaming, and some people just bought the CD copy. And so yeah, in this video, of course, I did the unboxing of it not that long ago too. So I think enough time has passed to kind of go ahead. I think we've had enough time to digest all this stuff, and now it's time to finally give our thoughts on this stuff. So of course, look forward to this. If for all the viewers watching, if you've heard the remix, please give the video a like, subscribe if you are new, and let's just jump right into it. And so we're gonna do something. We're not gonna get to the remix right away. We're actually gonna save it to the end. So please stay tuned for that. But we will talk about the other things that are included in the box set. Of course, I'm not going to give my opinions on a lot of this stuff because, of course, I already said what I said in the unboxing video. So this is really going to be Nick giving it a chance to give his opinion on some of the content in the actual box set. And plus, my opinion hasn't changed too much from a lot of this stuff included. So, of course, just reminder's sake, of course, the first thing you do when you open it up, you get the vinyl copy of it, which is pretty cool. Get this. Now I own two Queen albums on vinyl, so there's that. What do you think of the kind of updated cover here?
I actually like this version of the cover. I mean, I'm not a fan of them renaming the album Queen 1, but I feel like if you would have taken the 1, I like the gold because I believe the gold they used for the US version, which I actually own it. I don't know why I didn't bring my copy down here, but I do have a US version of this album, and it has that gold. And I've always liked the gold of the Queen, but I never liked the more reddish that they go for the US one. So I think it's like a perfect mix between the US and the UK version. And this had I mean, for the most part, I really like this cover. And if I had the choice, I would actually any future version of Queen, the original version, the non-2024 version, I would have that exact cover, but without the 1 on it. And to me, it would be perfect.
Yeah, and there's actually other things that were different with the cover that I was not aware of on first glance because of course we have to use my CD for comparison, but of course there's this weird white dot here that's on the actual cover. So they did, and there's actually others. Kind of like weird flickers here and there, like those white streaks there. But yeah, on this, they do clean those up, and it does look a lot neater. So I do think they did really good on this one overall. Like I said, I could have liked a more saturation of the purple, but I think it still looks very nice overall. So still very cool. And of course, I did hear it, and yeah, it just sounds the exact same as the CD. So not much difference there, but still pretty neat. Okay, so of course, next up, of course, we have the CDs, which we'll get to later. Put that to the side. And I did keep the hype sticker. It's right here.
Nice.
Yeah. And now we get to the other stuff in the box set. Again, to me, of the extra content, these are the most pointless to me, but curious what you think. Of course, you get these poster cards or whatever of each member. So what do you think of these extra bits? Do you think these are worth it, or are they kind of like what filler stuff?
I'm kind of mixed with those because you could argue it's filler just so that it's kind of like them being like, hey, here's all this extra stuff so you don't have to criticize us on the remixes. But I like it's kind of like the White Album where they have the 4 pictures of the Beatles. It kind of reminds me of that, but to me, I both like it, but at the same time, it's like I'm not a huge fan of them at the same time because it's like I'm kind of in agreement with you, but at the same time, I could see why they added it for people who would want to buy the album, just more incentive to buy it. So to me, it's kind of filler, but at the same time, I could see why other people would like it.
Yeah,
I'm indifferent for them.
Yeah, I totally get people want to frame these. Like, I get that. And, they are nice photos. Get nice close-ups of each member. Yeah, here's Roger, of course, and then you have John. So I do get it, but again, I just don't have. For me personally, I don't have much use for these. So next thing they have is the poster. I'm not gonna unfold this because this is pretty big, but of course it's just a image of the back cover. And of course, just to recap, I thought they could have done something more different than just the back cover. Maybe a photo of the band would have been cool, but that's just my thing. What do you think of the poster?
In my opinion, they should have had 2 posters. I love that poster. I love that because I've always been a big fan of the back cover and think it was a little underrated of a back cover, but they could have had another poster of like them in 73 instead of just that. I feel like maybe in the perfect universe, you have that front poster, but then on behind they could have they could have had one that could have been like the first side of it, but if you want the band, you could have it on another side of it. So they could have utilized both sides, and And
Mm.
maybe some people would want to show the back cover one, like the back cover side, and some people might want to see the front one with the band. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, that's a good idea actually, because I do have, because I have a like a, because I have a Judas Priest. No, I have their debut on CD, and it actually came with a mini poster, and it does have two sides where you can either have the front or the back cover.
Yeah.
So yeah, something like that would have been nice. So yeah, that's like a good compromise, I would think. And moving along, we have this last thing. It includes, we have, of course, we have the hardcover book. And again, I'm not going to go through everything in here, but I did show you and Jason in that privately before, and I showed you a lot of the pictures. And yeah, what do you think of the book?
I really like the book. I think there's a lot of great pictures of the band. Of course, there's probably a lot of stuff to read that of course couldn't read because you were going through it. And I'm not gonna like say like, okay, Bryer, show me page 1, and I'll be like, okay, stop, and I'll just read it. Be like, okay, flip the page. I wouldn't do that, but yeah, I think it's a really cool book. I mean, a lot of box sets do that as like another incentive to buy their box set, because that's what the Beatles do that, and a lot of other people with box sets do that. So I'm happy that Queen did it, because I think it's a pretty good book.
Yeah, and I did take more time to look through it. And yeah, it is a nice thing to kind of flip through and kind of read certain things. Again, it includes a lot of photos during that time period. Of course, you have photos of them before John joined the band with their original bass player, and you have images of handwritten lyrics they did for some of the songs and some other kind of historic moments and images. So it is a nice book to look through. So I think this is definitely a nice addition to the box set as well. But other than that, that's pretty much all the extra stuff here. But now let's go ahead and shift over. Let's talk about the actual music itself. Of course, we have all the CDs here, all 6. So like I said, we're going to skip the remix. We'll save that to the end, but keep that suspense coming. So other than that, let's just go in order. We'll start with disc 2, and of course, this disc 2 is the Lane Lea demo songs that they did. These were the demos they did to help get record labels to sign them, and it only comes with 5 songs. You just get Keep Yourself Alive, The Night Comes Down, Great King Rat, Jesus, and Liar. And yeah, so I'll have Nick go first, but what do you think? Of course, you've heard these, but what do you think of these demos?
Are these the only ones that they've recorded, or did they have more, but they just chose to pick 5?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if they only did 5 or were there more, but they got lost. I'm willing to bet these are the only 5 they did, because I guess they didn't want to do a whole album. Again, this was only just to send for record label, so of course you don't want to give them too much, because of course the more you give, the more like, I don't have time to listen to all this. Just give me 5. Like 5's a good number. But yeah, other than that, I think that's the case.
Yeah, I feel like that makes more sense. Yeah, I think these are pretty good. I like these. I like the Keep Yourself Alive one. I thought that was a cool demo. I really like The Night Comes Down. I like the demo version of that. Great King Rat, I thought was pretty decent. I mean, I much prefer the one that they would end up making, but yeah, I think it had potential, and of course they utilized on that potential. I think it's one of my favorites on the album. Jesus, I'm just looking at these. If I was in the record producer spot, or like a record label spot, like what would I think? I'm like, yeah, Jesus is a pretty good song. I think that also has potential. And Liar, I mean, yeah, I think, man, Liar, great. It's like an 8-minute version of Liar. I'm like, this is really good. I could definitely see where they would end up going with this. And I was shocked to see it was like 8 minutes long. I was like, oh my gosh, 8 minutes. I didn't know if it was going to be good or not. And yeah, I was really happy with these 5 tracks. Definitely one of my favorite aspects of the album.
Yeah, this is definitely nice. This is definitely a nice kind of little oddity here. This is definitely cool to kind of hear where these songs kind of started out as before they, of course, polish them up later on. Of course, with Keep Yourself Alive, I mean, what's very fascinating is that there's really hardly any electric guitar on this version. It's mainly acoustic guitar, especially in the intro. which I found very interesting. And the bass was I found more prominent than on the official mix. And of course, what's even more interesting is that there's actually a slight lyric difference in the lyrics. There's a part where Freddie says, "I was told a million times of all the trouble in my way," but on the demo it says, "I've been told a million times of all the people in my way."
I was told a million times of all the troubles in my way. I was told a million times of all the people in my way.
So there's a slight lyric difference there, which is kind of fascinating. And because it's a demo, of course, it's slightly slower than the original. It's not quite as fast. More like the original, like the official thing is a bit more faster paced, and there's a lot more ad-libbing on here as well. And so this is pretty interesting. And of course, yeah, and Brian kind of sounds a bit more, how do you say, isolated. Like it doesn't sound like his guitar's like fully integrated in the mix, but it's still a very solid version of Keep Yourself Alive. I think it still shows the promise right off the bat. Then we have The Night Comes Down, and and you say you enjoy this. For me, when it comes to The Night Comes Down, I have no idea. I could be totally off, but I don't know if it's because if there's a mess up or something like that, but I hear The Night Comes Down and I'm listening to it like this sounds way too fully formed for some reason. Like it sounds almost identical to the original to the finalized mix. Like the vocals to a T are pretty identical, and the only giveaway is like maybe the drums are just slightly different. So that's like, I guess that's the only indication that it could be the demo, but I don't know. I was kind of left with questions on this. Again, I don't know if I'm hearing things incorrectly or something like that, but that was like the moment where I'm like, I'm not sure about that. Don't know if there was a mess up on this CD or not. But hey, I haven't listened on streaming, so maybe I need to hear it on streaming, see if I hear a difference. Then you have Great King Rap. Yeah, it just goes right to the point. Like you get the guitar really right off the bat. Again, longer. Of course, a lot more ad-libbing, especially on the guitar solo. And there's no fade out, which I found interesting. Like there's no fade out in the official in this demo, which is cool, which kind of pretty neat, kind of interesting. But overall, it's pretty close to the final mix. Jesus, 2 minutes longer. Electric guitars are a lot more prominent, I found. Again, a bit more slower than the finalized mix, but still pretty cool. And the harmonies were pretty on point. And pretty much jams out a little bit more, I found. And the guitars was still pretty cool. And then you have Liar. Again, 2 minutes longer. And yeah, still sounds pretty cool. There's a lot more distance, especially when they when they scream out liar.
Won't you let me in? Liar! Won't you let me in? Liar!
It felt like there was a lot more distance, like more echo on that, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, it's just and also a slightly different guitar solo. And then you hear Freddie say, "Master, I'm gonna be your slave," which he didn't do on the finalized mix. But still sounds pretty cool. Again, sounds pretty close on what they would do later. But overall, still very cool to kind of hear these demos, to kind of see where the songs would start out as, and then of course comparing them to where they would become later. Again, The Night Comes Down, I still have questions on that, but again, not gonna dwell on that. But other than that, that's all of the Lane Lea demos. So let's go ahead and move on to disc 3, and that is the Queen I Sessions. So what are your thoughts on these?
Yeah, I thought on streaming it says it's the Trident takes. A lot of them are like Trident takes, so that's what I was referring them to, but I guess that's what the CD refers them to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought another great addition. I love demo. I love when an album packs a box set with demos. I mean, I don't like go back to them like on a regular basis, but it's like nice to like go back to see where these songs originally start from And I feel like I'd love for more Queen albums to have these, especially for like A Night at the Opera. Like I want to hear some outtakes on A Night at the Opera, or Date the Races, or Jazz, or Sheer Heart Attack and Jazz. Like these two albums that I have right here in the basement. But it's just like in general, just would love to see more outtakes on these songs, on Queen songs. I mean, Keep Yourself Alive, I thought was pretty decent. Doing All Right was cool to see where that song kind of came from. Great King Grab was great. My Favorite King I was enjoying a lot. Liar I liked. Again, just cool seeing where the epic Liar came from, like where it started, where it originated, like how it sounded originally before they started really finalizing it. Night Comes Down I liked. Modern Times Rock and Roll, cool to hear. Roger's song Get its demo version, basically. Son and Daughter, or like one of my all-time favorite songs from their very, very early period, from their first 3 albums. I enjoyed. Of course, Jesus I liked, and Seven Seas of Rye. I mean, it's just an instrumental version. There's nothing really much to talk about. Just like the original, just like the one we hear on the album. Matt the Swan I liked. Yeah, I purposely left it for last because I refuse to believe it's part of this album. I know some new Queen fans might disagree with me, but if you've been listening to this album as long as me and Bryer have, you're gonna want to. Now the Swan does not belong on the album. It's a bonus track. Let's see what a fool I've been. I was surprised to see this in the demos because, to me, I thought that would be for the Queen II box set if they ever made that, because that's like that's like a B-side to like one of the Queen II songs. So it was like interesting to hear it on this. I'm like, what's that doing here? So I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, I don't care for the song, and I don't care for it being on this album either. So I was a little disappointed that it was on here. So I know that's probably stupid. I'm probably in the minority when I say that, but yeah, it could have been on the Queen II box set. But overall, I was pretty happy with this disc.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it's definitely not something you're going to go listen to constantly. Like, it's kind of, you kind of want to hear maybe once or twice. But, you know, despite that, you know, there's still some, it's nice to hear, especially hear the banter right before they they do the take. I mean, I've written down some of my favorite moments, like in Keep Yourself Alive. You know, you hear Freddie say,
well, the bass is coming out funny through the cans.
And then you hear some other, like, things that you didn't even think, like, in the drum solo to Keep Yourself Alive, you hear more congas, like some kind of bongo can be heard, which of course they would not use in the final mix, but still kind of interesting. And then let's see, but for the most part, a lot of these songs were pretty close on what they would do. With Doing All Right, I found Freddie's vocals a lot more breathy, like not quite as like clear, but definitely exhaling a bit more into the vocals, which is kind of fascinating. And you know, majority of these are kind of like guide vocals, like where there's not really meant to be singing. Like when you hear Freddie, he's usually just like kind of like da, 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 da. Like he's not really singing the words. He's kind of just like it suggests, like he's just kind of humming to the melody, make sure he knows the melody very well before he actually says the words. So there's a lot of that here. Matt the Swine, you know, probably my favorite moment is you hear Brian say,
"Oh, it's you, Bullstar. It's you that's flattening bastard." You're going, nah, nah,
I love that. That was probably my favorite part of that.
Yeah. And then I think in that same thing, like Freddie called Brian Brycey or something like that.
Right, Brycey.
Which is kind of fun. Of course, you definitely hear Freddie's personality coming through. And then at the end of Matt the Swine, I guess Roger messed up, and then you hear Freddie said,
"Do another one straight away, because that wasn't too good. Roger, you fucked it up."
And then at the very end, you hear them say "Queen Bitch," which may be a David Bowie reference. I'm not sure.
Maybe. Actually, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. This was released. I mean, this was recorded like a year or two after Hunky Dory was released. So that wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
Yeah. And then he has some other like funny moments, like Barry King. They messed up the intro, but you hear John speak for the first time, which is kind of nice. You don't really hear him speak very much because by this point he was still very much the quiet one. Son and daughter, you hear obvious voice crack, which was kind of funny. Um, and then and then there's other moments like in Seven Seas of Rye, you hear Freddie kind of mess up the piano intro, and I think he says it's because he says he was getting tired because a lot of this recording sessions took place late in the night, so I would not blame him that they were pretty tired by that point. And yeah, I agree with you. I didn't notice it at all until way later. When I noticed that "See What a Fool I've Been" is included on there. Like, I guess it's a song that does date back to the debut, but like kind of like you, I've always associated that B-side to Queen 2. So it's definitely interesting to have it included here. But it's again nothing too special about it. It's just about the same, just the band messing around in the beginning, and I think they said take 36, which I'm assuming that's a joke. But yeah, it's still overall, it's definitely nice to give these a listen and just hearing how they were in the recording studio. And yeah, I also agree, it would be cool to hear if there's any more of these stuff, and maybe they'll save that for other box sets in the future. But yeah, still very cool disc there. All right, now we get to this, and let's just make this one quick. Disc 4, backing tracks.
Yeah, I don't really care for this at all. I listened to it once, and that'll be the last time I ever hear this. And the only reason why I listened to it was for our review, to be honest. It's Queen, but instrumentals and maybe backing vocals every once in a while. That's it.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't want to go track by track.
Right. Yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah, like I said this in the video, and I still stand by it. This is the most pointless thing in this entire set. Because again, why would I want to hear these songs instrumental? You already have 7 Seas of Rye. That's enough instrumentals this band needs. And of course, they say like, oh, this would be good for karaoke. And I said this to you already, but to the people watching, like I said, I know Queen's popular in karaoke bars, but I know damn well they don't sing any of these songs on this album. No. Of course they're gonna go for Bohemian Rhapsody, Somebody to Love, We Will Rock You, stuff like that, but nothing from this album.
Maybe Keep Yourself Alive.
Maybe that's like the only like possible one, but for the most part, no, not so much. But yeah, we're just gonna move on. There's really not much to say. Okay, disc 5, we got Queen at the BBC. What are your thoughts on this?
This is my favorite disc of the album, in my opinion. I like the BBC that they released because I think they had a BBC like album already. But
yeah,
to me, this is amazing because it's like it brings attention to those Queen fans. Like, hey, this exists. Listen to it. Some Queen fans don't even know it exists, and I love how they basically bring light to these versions of the songs. I love it. Of course. My Fairy King being the opening track on the album, pretty cool. It's interesting. Most people would think Keep Yourself Alive would be the opening, but no, this song again, I think it's great. Keep Yourself Alive I really enjoyed. Doing All Right I really liked. Liar, I thought they did a great job. Again, I love Liar, and they're just every version I've heard of this song so far on this box that I'm really enjoying on the bonus stuff. Keep Yourself Alive. Again, I mean, to Keep Yourself Alive, so I'm not sure about that, but it's cool to have two versions from the BBC. And then they have another Liar, which I like that. I mean, it's like a little repetitive in my opinion, but it was still good. Son and Daughter, really great version of that song. In my opinion, definitely to me the best version of the ones that they do have in the album because they have two of those as well. Modern Times Rock and Roll. I'm glad Roger Taylor's getting some love again. I love how they included his song on this. Great King Rat I really enjoyed. Son and Daughter again. I don't think it's as good as the first one. Same with the second Modern Times Rock and Roll. It's like a little too many repeat tracks on here. That's what I'm getting on the streaming service. I don't know what it is for the CD you have, but there's like 11 tracks, and couple of repeats, not like repeats, but two like same songs, but like different versions. It's like maybe we could have done without doing that, but in my opinion, I still think it's the best disc.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely cool. Of course, like we already said, there is a BBC CD out there. But what's interesting is that I actually looked it up. That CD only had 8 songs. Of course, this one you have 11, so you do get more from this than you would if you were to get that CD. But yeah, it's still very nice. I think this is definitely a very strong disc. Again, hearing different versions of these songs, just them performing for the BBC, and just what's always fascinating about the BBC sessions is that a lot of times the song sounds almost like the actual song, but there's always a slight difference that makes it kind of stand out. There's one part I'll talk about, like in Doing All Right, where again, for the most part, on the final song, it's Freddie singing, but in the BBC version, Roger gets a verse, which is kind of fast, which is again pretty cool. Like it's like the only time you ever hear that. But yeah, but overall, it's still very cool. I don't have too much to say because yes, it's just the album, but just different sounds a different way. Just another way to kind of enjoy the album. But yeah, it's still a nice addition. Even though you could get the CD for probably cheaper, like I do think it's still pretty neat. They do include a lot of the stuff here, a lot of this stuff in this box set. So I think it's still a pretty good addition. Okay, and now we get on to disc 6, which is the final thing. Of course, this is Queen I Live, and before I pass it to Nick, of course, a lot of this stuff is on this CD here, Queen at the Rainbow, which of course you can get. And yeah, just wanted to point that out. But really the big things we're going to talk about are the last 4 tracks here, because I think that's the most interesting part. But of course, Nick, go ahead. What do you think of the final disc?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, it's the second best disc on the album. I love the live recordings, especially. I like the last 4 tracks. Especially tracks 10 and 11, because you'll give. I feel like you should give the reason why 10 and 11 is very unique. But I love this live disc. I mean, I think Queen is such a good live band. I mean, I wouldn't say they're like the top live band. I will say what they do in the studio is magical, and especially like when we get to like Jazz and News of the World and Day at the Races, you really hear the awesomeness that they do in the studio that you don't really quite get on the live stage. But I think they do close enough job at emulating their studio stuff at the concerts that I really enjoy. Of course, they open up the disc with Son and Daughter live at Rainbow. Really, really cool. The second track is a guitar solo. That's literally the name of the track, guitar solo. I mean, you know a guitar solo is good when they literally make it its own track.
Yeah.
Track 3, Son and Daughter Reprise, I thought was pretty cool. Track 4, Great King Grad, I really enjoyed. Again, hearing just different versions of the song. Keep Yourself Alive, I liked. Track 6, drum solo. So we get a guitar solo and a drum solo. I really like the drum solo. Just goes to show how underrated Roger Taylor is with the drums. And of course, a reprise of Keep Yourself Alive, which I really enjoy. Modern Times Rock and Roll. Again, really, really love the Roger Taylor love on this album. On this box set, you would think like they wouldn't be really paying attention to the Taylor song on the album, but they really were hammering in on these box sets that I really enjoy. Liar. Again, I'm a sucker for Liar. Great song on the album. Another great version of the song. Hangman. I thought it was pretty unique. I thought it was pretty cool. I liked it. Doing All Right. Really cool. Jesus. And I'm a Man. Interesting hearing them do I'm a Man, but that was an interesting way to close out the album, though. Yeah, that's my thoughts on the live disc.
Yeah. And what's cool about the disc 6 is that they chose to use the Freddie doing that pose that of course was part of the album cover. I think that's kind of fitting. But yeah, my thoughts on the final disc. I, you know, I even though it is kind of a critique. You know, of course you could just get the Queen at the Rainbow CD, so you can hear these songs without the whole box. But you know, at the end of the day, I can't really fault them because of course it goes without saying there's really hardly any other types of recordings of these songs besides the Rainbow stuff that's actually in decent quality or not lost. So I can't really fault them for it. I mean, with that aside, I mean, of course, the stuff with the Rainbow stuff does sound really good. Of course, I've had this CD since this year, actually, earlier this year, and yeah, it's a great live album. There's two discs. Disc 1 is during the Queen 2 tour, and disc 2 is the Sheer Heart Attack tour, and both of them sound really great. So yeah, no real fault with them as a whole, but again, for me, the biggest intrigue are the final 4 tracks. Of course, you have Hangman, which was apparently a song they had, but they never got a chance to record it. It was like an early kind of live staple they did very early on, and it was just a song they would occasionally play. Like, I mean, this particular live version of Hangman was from 1976, so this was during the Day of the Races tour, probably. So it's pretty late for them to keeping the song around, and it's a pretty interesting song. I will say I kind of get why they never really got around to record it, because it's not really, I wouldn't say it's definitely not like a top tier song. It's pretty fine for what it is. But you know, the live version, you know, there's a good guitar riff. You know, Freddie has a good more aggressive vocal on this one, and the chorus is solid. There's a good guitar solo too, and it gets faster towards the end. But I definitely do get why they never got a chance to record it. But what's funny, of course, I think the funny bit is at the end of it where you hear Freddie says,
Okay, maybe we'll record that one for the next album. Yes? Only if you say so.
and I'm guessing not many people said so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Well, they did record that in your home state, in your hometown.
That's right. My my neck of the woods. So that's kind of cool. It's like it's really trying to tempt me to buy this thing. But anyhow, then it goes to Jesus at the same show, and it's a great rendition. Nice to see that song kind of still hanging around by that point, which of course it would not last that long before they would stop performing that song live, which is kind of, that was a nice live moment. But then you get the final stuff live at Imperial College, 1970. Of course, this was before John joined the band. I believe this was with their first bass player, Mike Gross or Gross. I still don't want to say his last name properly, but yeah. So it's definitely, of course, naturally, the audio quality is pretty crap, which is understandable because, of course, they were still very new, and so they didn't have the best recording stuff at that point. But still, you get a good sense on how they sounded like that early on. Freddie's vocals still very powerful, and of course Brian and Roger still really great on their instruments, and even Mike. I give props to Mike. He's definitely a solid bass player. I think he held the fort well, but of course we all know John would elevate these even more. Then you hear Roger's falsetto during the harmonies. Is pretty cool to hear. Definitely a little bit slower, of course, but still very cool version of it. And then yes, you have I'm a Man, which I made the stupid assumption that it was the Spencer Davis Group song. I was completely wrong. It's actually Bo Diddley.
Yeah, it's if you ever heard the UK version of the Who album, My Generation, that's the version that I'm like, oh, they're covering the song that I mostly know the Who doing. So I mean, I know it's not the Who's version. I always know it's Bo Diddley's version, but I'm like, oh, they're doing that version. I'm like, I'm doing a blues song.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how Jason would like this.
Yeah, there's that. Of course, I think they could have pulled the Spencer Davis Group song very well. I think they could have pulled that off too.
That would have been awesome. It would have been like that. Their grandiose theatrics of Queen. Oh, that would have been epic.
Why do I feel like they did? But maybe it was part of a medley or something, but it didn't really last long. I could be wrong on that. I have to look into that again. Future Bryer here. So I did some investigating and I looked at this Queen Live at Wembley CD, and as you can see on disc 2, they do Spencer Davis Group, but it's Gimme Some Lovin'. And you can also kind of see it's not even a minute long because they just played the main riff the entire time. They just it's kind of like an interlude between Tutti Frutti and then into Bohemian Rhapsody. So I was right, they did do Spencer Davis Group, but not I'm a Man. So there's that, and it's also not even the full song. A little bit disappointed with that, but you know, just wanted to throw it out there. Anyway, back to the video. But regardless, of course it's a blues cover, and of course it's slow and bluesy, which I'm pretty sure Jason wouldn't like. But it gets faster towards the end, and Freddie definitely that's where Freddie puts on this, I don't know, like Freddie, there's a voice in there, like it sounds almost unlike Freddie, but I'm assuming it is. I don't know if it was somebody else, but it's definitely an interesting, like I can't remember exactly when, but I noticed Freddie's vocals sounded very different, but still pretty cool to hear them so early in their career. Definitely definitely makes this even more worth it just to kind of hear those. Of course, you can find this on streaming too, but regardless, overall, pretty solid 6th disc in my opinion. Well, that pretty much covers all the other discs in this box set, but of course, we've left the main event for last. Of course, all we have left to talk about is the actual remix itself. So, Nick, I'll give it to you. What is your thoughts on the 2024 Queen I remix?
Okay, I'm gonna go track by track, but they're gonna be very samey, the reviews. Let's get started. Track 1, Keep Yourself Alive. I liked what they did with the instrumentations. I thought they did a pretty good job, but vocally, they killed it. I think Freddie Mercury doesn't sound as good as he did with the original recording. They tried correcting his vocals, but it didn't work. It's like, why fix something that wasn't broken? I could go crazy, but I'm going to keep it tame here since it's not my channel. And track 2, doing all right. Same problems like I had with track 1. Track 3, Great King Grat. I thought it was a little better. I didn't think it was as bad as doing all right and Keep Yourself Alive. My Fairy King. Yeah, it's kind of back to where track 1 and track 2 was, where I'm like, the backing track is pretty good, but man, what are they doing with Freddie? They're killing him. Liar. It's even worse in my opinion. To me, this is probably the worst of the tracks that they did. I think his vocals were probably the worst on this, and yeah, I think the backing track wasn't even that good either, in my opinion. The Night Comes Down. It's kind of really close to that level, and that's the track that was released first. I wasn't crazy about it. Modern Times Rock and Roll, ironically the best, actually the second best on the album of the vocals. I don't think they really destroyed Roger's vocals as much because, I mean, Roger Taylor isn't a vocalist that I'm really that, like, I'm not really going to be as defensive on. I love his vocals, but not as much as Mercury's. Son and Daughter, I didn't like it at all. Kind of the same reasons why I don't like Liar. Jesus, probably the second best of the remixes. Actually, the third best, I should say. And Seven Seas of Rye is the best because there's no vocals to destroy. Yeah, ironically, it's the best for me. And yeah, to me, the remixes, ironically, are the second worst disc on the album. If there was no backing track disc, this would be the worst disc on the album. So the main reason they're even doing this, and I'm like, yeah, I don't like this at all. If you want to hear Queen, listen to Queen. Don't listen to Queen I's remixes. It's not good.
Yeah. It's interesting because of course, by this point there's actually been a few reviews on the remix, and I've seen a few of them, and yeah, it is pretty much a mixed bag. I've heard some people actually enjoy it. I actually saw one review where some person actually loved it, and of course there are people who says it's absolute trash. Of course, what do I think on this of this remix? Uh, it's kind of a mixed bag. Like there's some moments that sounded fine, but then there are some moments that I found kind of distracting. So I'll go through the tracks real quick. Of course, Keep Yourself Alive. I actually thought it was okay. I thought it sounded okay. I think the guitar. I think one of the best things about the remix. I think Brian's guitar, for the most part, sounds really good. I think it really did benefit on it. Just sounds a lot more higher in the mix. Sounds a lot more full, which I do enjoy. I think that's like the best part. And then you hear some more odd, and throughout the whole remix, there's definitely parts. There's some instruments that get boosted, like in the opening of Keep Yourself Alive. There's a cowbell that's a lot more audible than on the original mix. And I noticed John's bass. I think I'd say that another kind of like negative thing I have with the remix. I think John's bass gets more buried than usual, especially on this song, because they put a lot more like a fuzz effect on his bass, which, you know, where on the original mix there's a lot more of a punch to it. Here it's kind of more, it blends a bit more, so it's hard to hear it. So I wasn't too impressed with that. And so there's that. You know, but overall, I think besides that, I think it sounds okay. The whole picture correct thing, Freddie's vocals thing, like, yeah, it's like I'm kind of grateful I don't hear it as much as hard as other people do, but it is always in the back of my head when I hear it. So there's also that thing that kind of spoils it. So there's that. Doing All Right, I think actually sounds pretty. I think that also sounds pretty okay. I think the piano sounds really good. I think the piano sounds really nice on here, and the bass is a lot higher on this one. The bass is a little bit better on this track. But what's interesting about Doing All Right is that, of course, if you hear the original song, you like near the end where it gets quiet, but then you hear that ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But in the original mix, it's like very loud, but you can obviously hear it. They kind of drop the volume just slightly. Where on this remix, it actually kind of plays the opposite. It's kind of starts like it's not as loud, but then it kind of boosts up. And there's no fade out on this one, which I found weird. Great King Rat, yeah, the guitars are pretty good again, but another big problem I have with this remix is that Roger's drums can get very distracting. They changed the drum sound of it, and sometimes it's okay, but it's especially on this song where it got very jarring. It almost sounds like it doesn't even fit. And I thought the vocals sounded a bit too clean. I like the more rougher vocals on the original mix, personally, and just overall this track just has this very off-putting sound. It wasn't too crazy. I think this is probably one of the weakest part of the remix. And again, no fade out during the drum bit at the end, which is weird. And then you have Mad as Swine, which you get, and again, I get why they included Mad as Swine in here, but again, we've known the original album for a long time, and so when you have every time you hear Great King Rat, you're expecting My Fairy King to play next, but then you have Mad as Swine, like, oh yeah, that's right. But
yeah, I'm expecting the beer. I forgot to kind of review the Swine portion. I was gonna review it after 7 Seas arrived, but I'm like, I actually forgot about it.
Yeah, that tells you. Yeah. And and what's of course I had to of course what I did getting ready for this, I heard the remix and I was constantly playing the remix and the original back to back. Of course, with Mad as Swine, it's not even on. Oh, where did I put that? It's not on this particular CD copy, so I have to go on YouTube to hear Mad as Swine, and so that was like extra work there. And hearing back and forth Mad as Swine, it's fine. it doesn't sound bad, doesn't sound horrible. It's just like it's fine, it's there. Not gonna spend too much time on it. My Favorite King intro is very similar to the original. Not complaining there. I feel like there's more separation in the vocals than usual, and Roger's high notes I noticed were kind of pushed back. Like in the original mix, it's more up front. You can definitely there's more up front in the mix. I kind of prefer it when it's more up front. It's more epic that way.
I agree. I certainly agree with you.
But yeah, that's kind of another odd choice. But the piano is a lot more audible than normal, which I guess is interesting. But yeah, again, good moments. That's kind of like what I've been saying about this whole thing. Like, there's good moments, but there's something about it that kind of push it back. Liar, I agree with you. I think this is another one of the weak parts of this remix. And that's one of my, of course, that you and I can agree, that's one of the best songs on the album.
Yeah, it's like one of the most epic songs that they've ever. It's like their first real epic. It's like the first epic song that Queen would do. Like every album, I'd say has like an epic song. I'd say this song, March of the Black Queen, Brighton Rock on the third album, freaking Bohemian Rhapsody, Tio Toriate, It's Late. So it's like every album, for the most part, like at least up until News of the World, they have like an epic song on an album. And this is the song that started it all, and they just destroyed, in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, one of the, of course, the beginning part with the cowbell and the drum bit sounds okay, but I noticed the first thing that I noticed was that the hand claps in the beginning, like it sounds more dead. Like in the original mix, it has more of an echo, but here it's like more of like an abrupt halt. Which, again, that's like, I kind of want the more echo. I want to sound bigger. That's kind of like my whole thing about the original mix. I think the original mix, ironically, the original mix sounds more heavier than this. This remix sounds a lot more brighter and fuller, but the original mix has that more raw, more kind of not muddy, but not quite as clean, which kind of adds to when they get heavy, it really adds to the atmosphere, and I kind of miss that here. And Liar's another example where the drums were very distracting. Like the more gated drums, I don't think it fit that well. But again, Brian's guitar sounds fine. Again, nothing wrong with that. But another part that really caught me off guard was, the whole "Mama Gonna Be Your Slave" portion. I noticed that the congas again are very high in the mix, where they are present in the original mix, but not as like up front. But here they really pushed them, and I'm like that, and I thought it was very distracting. Wasn't really a fan of that part. But the ad-libbing's a little more audible too. I will say, I think John's bass still sounds good though. I think they did John fine on that, especially during his bass solo. But yeah, I think I just like the original mix more on this track. It sounds way more heavier than this, and overall, this version is just not even close to it. Night Comes Down. Again, not much to say about it. A lot of people said about that one. And what makes it worse is that every time I hear The Night Comes Down, this version, of course, I'm going to think of that video, which is going to sour my view of it even more. So there's that too. I do agree. Modern Time Rock and Roll, I think it's definitely one of the better ones on the album. Again, Roger sounds pretty good. I will say, I think Roger's vocals sound maybe not better, but definitely a big step up, where I can actually understand him a bit more, where on the original mix, it was kind of harder to understand what he was singing, but here it's actually more coherent. And what's also really cool is that you definitely hear the piano a lot more. That old-time rock and roll, like Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard piano is more audible, which I think that was kind of cool. I like how they boosted that up. But yeah, there's that. Son and Daughter, again, another one of those songs where I'm like, it's like they felt like it could be a lot more heavier. I felt like Brian's guitar it sounds good, but again, the original mix just made it sound a lot more menacing. Here it's more not as dark, which I kind of miss. And there's less effects on the vocals, I noticed. I kind of like there's just a little bit of reverb on the original mix, which I think it added a bit more. Jesus, more of a build up to the drums. Okay, again, the drums were slightly better on this one, but still, then you have 7 Seas of Rye, which I have nothing to say. It's kind of like how I think of the original on the original album. It's like this is the short instrumental. It's like, yeah, it's really hard to mess that up. But other than that, yeah, again, I wouldn't say I hate this remix. It's definitely an interesting listen, just a different way to hear the album if you're curious. But to me, yeah, I think the original mix is still the superior version to hear. Again, good moments, but there's a lot of things that are very distracting and I'm not quite into. But yeah, overall, this was kind of like a mixed bag in terms of a remix. But there we go. Other than that, we have covered all the contents of the actual box set.
I have one more thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
Never get rid of Deacon John. Rest in peace.
Yeah, that's that. There's that too.
Yeah, rest in peace, Deacon John. You will forever be missed.
Him. Yep. You will live on. At least you're immortalized on this version.
Yes.
Right. So other than that, kind of the last question I have, the last question I have is, what as a whole, what do you think of this entire box set? Do you think it was worth it, or do you think this was a massive cash grab?
Okay. If I'm going by just the remixes, this is a cash grab. If I'm going just off the remixes. But if I'm going by the other that and the backing tracks, I'd say. Besides that, pretty solid box set. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. It's not mediocre. It's actually on the good side, but it's not something that I would buy personally.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna mirror you. Yeah, I'm also gonna give this a 7 out of 10. Yeah, if we're going by the remix and the backing tracks, but if we're just talking about the remix, it would have been kind of disappointing. But like you said, I think the other contents of the box kind of help boost it a little bit more. Obviously, of course, you don't have to be me. You don't have to buy the whole thing like I did. But of course, you can get like the single CD and stuff like that for cheaper. But I thought it'd be kind of cool. Yeah. Plus, it was my birth month, so there's that. But yeah, overall, I think it's a pretty nice box set. I don't regret buying it. I will say I don't regret getting this. It's still very cool. And again, the other stuff like the book and all the bonus CDs and even the poster, even my gripes with the poster, I still think it's a pretty cool to have. But yeah, overall, not a bad box set. So I guess a follow-up question, like, what do you think? Do you think they'll do more box sets similar to this? Like maybe not remix per se, like maybe stuff like who knows? Maybe they'll do something for a Night at the Opera because that's going to turn 50 next year. So that'd be cool if they do something like that. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
In my opinion, I think they're going to do what they did here where they did a remix. But this time, I don't think they'll autocorrect Freddie Mercury. I think hopefully they'll learn their lesson because no one's going to want to hear autocorrected Bohemian Rhapsody anytime soon.
Yeah. But
I think they will. Of course, for the 50th anniversary of that album, either that or they're going to go chronologically. So they'll go like Queen 2, then Sheer Heart Attack, then A Night at the Opera. Either that or they're just going to jump to A Night at the Opera. Who knows? Who knows what they will do? But if the remix sounds good, I'll buy it. But right now, I am not impressed so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it will be interesting if they would remix A Night at the Opera, mainly because I always assumed that the whole band will always like the production of that album. So I don't know what if they would do it, but it would still be interesting if they did. But that's just like, who knows? We'll see. We'll see what next year brings. If they even do it next year, who knows? Maybe be a year late, like this box set. Like, you think they would release it on the actual 50th anniversary of the album, but just had to wait over a year. But besides that, any closing thoughts you have, Nick?
I love this album. I love Queen. I think Queen is an amazing album. To me, it's like a top 100 album for me. So I love this album. Don't think I don't like the album. I think this is like, it's weird. It's like an album that would be my top 100 album. Some people don't even really care for this album. I think it's really underrated. I think it's a really underrated album, and I'm glad that Queen is actually giving attention to this album and its live recordings and their demos and all that. So I have lots of respects for it. So I'm kind of glad this was made, in a sense, for that stuff alone. And just in general, I love Queen. I'm going to be a little bit more critical on the things I love, like Queen, for example. And don't think I'm hating on Queen now. I'm not going to. It's not like I'm going to be like, I can't listen to Queen anymore. They did this, but I just for the things you love, you got to be a little bit more critical. So there's that. That's my closing statement.
Yeah. And kind of my last thing I'll say is that, of course, even though we were mixed on this remix, the good news is that the original mix is still available. Like, I checked, they did not get rid of the original mix, as far as I know, and I don't think they plan to, which is good. So again, the original mix will always be there. So again, like I said, this is just out of curiosity if you're really curious. But yeah, I think that will conclude this video right here. So Nick, maybe say it one more time. Where's your channel? What's the name of your channel, and anything you got planned going on?
Okay, so again, in the headline, I am Townsend 505, and as of November 3rd of recording this video, tomorrow on the 4th, I will be releasing 2 albums on my top 100 albums list. And if this video doesn't get released on Wednesday, after Wednesday, that'll be another 2 videos. So I'll just be continuing releasing those. So thanks for putting that out. As for live streams, I'm not entirely sure yet. I didn't schedule anything with Jason Bryer or Jacob yet, but besides that, I don't really have much more to add on my channel.
All right, that's cool. So again, Nick, thank you so much for joining me on this review. Definitely had a lot of fun. Had great discussions. And of course, to the people watching this, in the comments below, let us know if you heard the remix and give us your opinion on this. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Were you mixed on it? Again, we appreciate all comments here, and we appreciate all opinions. So again, if you enjoyed this video, please give this video a like, subscribe if you are new, and I will see you, and hopefully Nick will see you on his channel. And of course, see you next time. Take care, and goodbye for now.